I want to show our current thoughts about how we add a new policy type, pipeline execution policies. And this is basically our current architecture for the scan execution policies. So what we do is we have the GitLab CI YAML from the project and then the policy CI YAML, and we merge them, and then we do some modifications like so we update workflow rules for projects without a CI, because if the project doesn't have a GitLab CI YAML, workflow rules say don't run the pipeline, but we still want to run them if there's a policy. We inject the reserved policy stages. We enforce them, so there's no, the project can't add any jobs to them. We apply variables to jobs. If the policy defines global variables, they will be added to the jobs instead to not interfere with the project CI. And we ignore some top level keywords like stages, for example, because we have the reserved stages. And then after we did some modifications to the config, we pass it to the create pipeline service, which runs a sequence to do all the steps to create a pipeline. This sequence actually looks like this. So there's a lot of things that happen here, but the simplified version, where's my slides? Yeah, there it is. So the simplified version is this. So we load the config, then we process the config. So we load includes and validate if it's actually a valid CI config. Then we evaluate the workflow rules. Then we seed the pipeline, which means we apply the variables, we build a data structure that will be turned into a pipeline later, and then we evaluate job rules and other things. We checked some limits, and then we create the actual pipeline. So our new idea for scan execution policies, or for pipeline execution policies, is instead of merging the configs before passing it to the sequence, we want to pass them to the sequence separately and then handle them in different steps of the sequence. So we will still load the config, the project config, and process it. And then we'll load the policy config separately, process it, load includes, check, and validate it. Then we will evaluate the workflow rules for the project config. Then we can evaluate the workflow rules for the policy config separately. So then we have two sets of workflow rules, and we can decide if we want to have the policy to take like precedence, or if we will only want to run the policy jobs or only want to project jobs. And we're a bit more flexible here. Then we seed the project pipeline. We can seed the policy pipeline separately. With that, we can make sure that, for example, if the policy is invalid, we can still run the project pipeline, and the other way around. Like if the project pipeline is invalid, we can still only run the policy jobs. And then at this point, we can merge them together. Like if we know they're valid workflow rules are evaluated and both are seeded, then we merge them together, basically inject the policy jobs into the project jobs. And then we can do the rest, like check limits all together and create a pipeline. So that's the idea. Currently working on an POC to show how we can make this work. It's a little more complex than what we did before, because before it was just like merging together some text, and now it's actually performing some different things for different types of configs. But I think it gives us a lot more flexibility and will help us make this work, especially for workflow rules. We can evaluate them separately, which I think is pretty important. So that's the current state of our ideas. I'll try to put this in a working POC in the next couple of days, and then we can iterate from there.